Hi, Matt. Thanks for joining us. Do you want to just start off and tell us a little bit about your business?
To answer your question about how I started this, I was a financial advisor, and at the time, I had a lot of responsibilities, and I was making a pretty good living. So I thought I was awesome. I had sort of closed out most people in my life. We're as financial advisors, we're taught to be successful, but to keep it to yourself. You want to have a nice watch, but not too nice of a watch. You want to wear a nice suit, but not too nice of a suit. You want a decent car, but you don't want to be driving around in a Lamborghini everywhere you go. And so I had taken that to heart, and didn't have a lot of friends, didn't have a lot of connections, and felt like I was on my own. And I think, now through lots of therapy, I think what I figured out was, I needed some people in my life, and thought I was awesome. And I think maybe there's some divine intervention that happened, but something came down, kicked me in the brain, and said, "Look, dude, you're not all that." So I was formally diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder, and I was looking for some form of an outlet. I wanted to get out of my own head, and so I was. It was the first time in my life where I was willing to listen to suggestion. Like, I would actually listen to somebody if they said, "Hey, maybe you should try this or try that." And so I had scoffed at the idea of a psychologist. Like, why couldn't you just reason your way out of it? Or so I thought. And so now I was open, and the psychologist and I came to the conclusion I needed to let some people into my life, and I needed to maybe share some of this obsession, some of what I've learned, some of the things that I've picked up over the years by being so obsessed, and maybe I could turn this really negative connotation into a contribution. And so I set out on the car forums to start journaling the ownership experience of my F80 M3. So it was the 2015 M3 when it had come out. So lots of people were interested in that. And the new 991.1 GT3, a 2014 GT3, when that had come out, I had both of those cars at the same time. And so I started writing. So taking photos and writing, and I found that writing really helped my brain. Helped me get out of my own head, helped me stop thinking about all of my problems. So it helped me stop thinking about the future. Whenever I was writing, I felt like I was contributing, and then I got some human interaction in the way that I prefer human interaction, which is via the computer, via the internet. Instead of having somebody there in person, what I was attempting to do was to journal as if you were sitting on a chair in my garage next to me, and then I was writing, here's what I'm doing. And then somebody on those forums made a suggestion and said, it'd be smarter if you just set up a camera. And it dawned on me, that'd be a lot easier if, instead of taking photos and writing descriptions, which takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, maybe I could just learn how to edit, learn how to use a camera. And so I set my camera up, and I just started filming it, just started videoing what I was doing. At the time, it was a Canon 5D Mark II, so there was no autofocus, so half the things were out of focus. I didn't know how to edit, but I did know how to export in iMovie to H.264. I could export to that and then upload to YouTube. I submitted a special request to YouTube at the time because you weren't allowed to make over 15-minute videos in 2014. And so I started putting up just the whole washing process. It was 3 hours long, unedited, uncut, 3 hours of me just doing what I do. And of course, everybody told me, these are too long. You need to edit this down. You need to add some music. You need to make this entertaining. And I wasn't doing it for them. I was doing it for me, selfishly. It was a form of therapy. It was really just a way for me to support my vlogs, or support my journals. So the vlogging of what I was doing in my garage turned into the video is what I fell in love with. And so I started really spending more time making YouTube videos, and eventually the journals and forums have kind of died off with the advent of Facebook groups, but the business started several years after that. But the YouTube channel and me sharing, started out of a form of figuring out a way to turn my plight into a contribution to both me and the people around me. And so that's changed my life, substantially. And now I have a business attached to that. But that's how it all got started.
Being diagnosed with, I guess, OCD, were you kind of opening doors 3 times and turning light switches on and off? Like, is it that kind, or?
No, I don't have my OCD manifests in the fear of the future. And I'm constantly thinking of the future, obsessing over the future. The future of, like, if I'm driving down the road, what about the stoplight that's coming up? The future of I'm going to the dentist. Oh man, what if I had gingivitis, or I'm getting I'm losing all my teeth? The fear of the unknown, the fear of not having enough money, the fear of all of those things. And so I worry and constantly worry, and then that manifests in anxiety, and then the ultimate manifestation is I pass out. And so I lose consciousness, which is my ultimate fear. And so I'm obsessed with the potential of I could be passing out at any moment. Now, I've passed out about 12 or 13 times in my life. So I've gotten to the ultimate anxiety attack where my body goes into fight or flight. I'm always in flight, and so I want to avoid any of that. And so, as you can tell, I can explain this really well to you because I've been spending a lot of time obsessing over the attempt to fix this, right? To better myself. And so I've done many different forms of therapy, and I want to be better. I want to be good. I want to be not this. But I don't want to lose the essence, because being obsessed has had such positive byproducts for me. In that I've been very successful in business, very successful in life. I've had, a lot of benefits. There are a lot of benefits that come from being this way. Have you ever seen the movie Office Space? In the movie Office Space, he gets hypnotized, and then he turns into like just a total slug, right? And then he just loses all drive, all motivation. But that's like my ultimate fear, is that if I were to if I were to take something like psilocybin or something like that, that I would lose me, that I would lose the essence of what the obsession has done for me. And so it's this constant thought and, overthought and fear of the future. I used to have some rituals where I would have to like make a wish on the clocks at 8:08 or something like that. But that was when I was younger. I don't know what was going on, but no, I don't have any like have to wash my hands 100 times. It's more manifested in a fear of the future and an obsession attached to that. And then I'm very compulsive around having to stick to that, and solve that problem and worry about the perfect scenario. And so when you worry about perfection, it can be, even if you got 50% of the way there, which has been the story of my life, if you get 50% of the way to the perfect scenario, you end up with really great results. The only problem is when you're obsessed like I am, I never give myself credit. And that's what I'm learning to do now. I'm learning to give myself credit. I'm learning to be okay with it. I'm learning to define what perfect would be. Because when you suffer, I do, I'm always thinking about a perfect scenario that is undefined, that is unattainable. And so why not make it attainable and make the perfect scenario exist, at least on paper? And then if I can get halfway there, I can change the world.
Cool. So yeah, basically you're able to channel these obsessions into something that's positive, and you're not worrying about the future of like, the end of the world, like a doomsday prepper. You're more like worried about trying to get the car perfectly clean, or like having your tools set up correctly that you want, like trying to channel that energy into something positive?
No, the fear for me is that I'm going to pass out, right? The byproduct is that my tools are organized because I like that. I enjoy that. It makes me feel good. It makes me think about something else rather than passing out. So the byproduct of having a clean, really dialed in car, or the clean dialed in car, is a byproduct of me being afraid of my own brain, right? And so this is where I think a lot of people misconstrue OCD and misconstrue the obsessive tendencies. And my form is not the same as everyone, but generally speaking, if the person's worried about locking the door 500 times, they're also worried about the organization of their, their flatware drawer. But they're not really worried about the flatware drawer. The flatware is what makes you feel calm, what makes you feel at home, what makes you feel at ease. And because of all of that, I'm obsessed about tools and the cleaning process and the structure of all of that. There's some value there, right? And so because I feel at home, I feel good, I'm not worried about passing out, I'm not worried about the future, I'm not worried about money and finances and doom and destruction. I'm not worried about that if I'm organizing my tool drawer, or I'm polishing a fender, or if I'm washing my car, because I'm focused on the improvement of that. It's my happy place. And so that's taken me a long time to figure out what that is and what that's worth. And because of this tendency, it's like I almost have like a supercharger when it comes to, or I have a turbocharger attached to my organization level. And so because I'm at a crazy level of organization, a lot of people aspire to be that way. And so there's some value that I can provide the world by sharing what I've learned, by using that turbocharger to go and chase organization solutions and things like that. So my happy place is in the organization. It's not the scared place. The scared place is the other part of my brain that I'm attempting to shut off and occupy with something else. I know it's convoluted. I hope that makes sense, but it's taken me a long time to figure out what's going on here in my brain.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think there's a lot of people that are like you in terms of they see the garage or their hobby or their profession as like automotive as their safe space, their like meditation, almost like a place where they can go and get away from the worries of the world. And there probably are a lot of people that don't realize that they have like this obsession, that they have a compulsive, like people call it disorder. But if you're able to like switch it up and make it orderly, I guess it no longer becomes a disorder, it can become something that's positive.
Yeah, a contribution is what somebody has, my coach told me at one point. He said, figure out a way to make things that are problematic for you a contribution to both you and the people around you. And if you can figure out a way to create a value proposition based on that, now you can really change the world. You can really do well with that for people around you. And so me sharing that and being willing to share it has helped me immensely, therapeutically, just to not take it all in, not hold it all in. And then, the byproduct is that, I get to include others and then get to have some sort of relationship. Because when I first started this, there's a heavy materialistic element of all the things that I have a sincere interest in. There's a pursuit of expensive cars and expensive tools and expensive cabinets and fancy lights, and all that stuff can be, to me, I feel like it's oftentimes misinterpreted. The fancy lights are something that I'm using to illuminate the garage, to light the garage, and then because I've learned a lot about lights via this obsession, via my happy place, I can provide some value to others and save them a lot of time and effort from buying the wrong lights, because I've done it. I've done the buying of the wrong lights, and the lights are just an object, but that's an object that connects me to another human, even though it's convoluted in an indirect form. I'm looking for a certain type of human connection, and the material object is what gets me there. It's what gives me my pulpit where I can stand up and give my testimony on the light. The light is just the thing that connects me to the world. And a lot of people from the 30,000-foot view may view that as, well, shoot, he's just obsessed with the lights and care about people. It's all about materialism, when that's really not not the case. I'm extremely gracious, or I have an extreme sense of gratitude that I even can get those lights and find those lights. And it's taken me a long time to figure out again what that means. And so I don't feel a sense of show offness. Like I'm not trying to show you the lights or show off the lights. I have a strong sense of gratitude for it, having those lights, having found those lights, and I love sharing it with you because then that's how we connect. And I can connect in my way of connecting, and not have to say, well, how's the weather, or what'd you think about the this or that political party? I don't. That's not interesting to me. And so that's where Obsessed Garage has become a homologation, or an aggregate of all types of people that have different types of obsession.
Sounds like, filmmaking, if you buy the wrong light or the wrong tool, even, it's, you can waste a lot of money on just having to replace that because it breaks. Same with like power tools, I guess. If you buy like the cheap version, you might as well spend a bit more to try and get something that's a bit more quality that will last you a lot longer. So I guess you've gone through that process of finding the best products, the things that work for you, and in turn work for other people.
Even the best product can still break. What I'm pursuing is an excellent user experience. And an excellent user experience doesn't have a time frame to it. Sometimes an excellent user experience can be a shorter time frame than a poor quality user experience of a lesser quality product. So for example, if you buy a GT Cup car, you're going to get awesome performance around the track, but that engine needs to be rebuilt every 80 or 90 hours. Right. And so you would, if you were to say, well, shoot, the best product should last forever. Well, the Cup car is purpose built for a specific application. So sometimes, it usually is correlated where a great product with a great user experience has a longer lifespan. But I caution a lot of people that are, listening to my advice, sometimes, especially if you're dealing in the professional grade products, you've got to work for it. You've got to work for it, and you've got to understand that a commercial grade or pro grade company doesn't have the customer service, set up that a consumer based company would. They don't have the margins to do it because they're spending all their time and money on the product. I love those types of products, and I'm willing to work for it. And so I spend a lot of time educating people. For example, I sell Cox hose reels for the pressure washers and for vacuum hoses. And sometimes you'll have to chase the threads, to get your hose to fit. You might have to get a tap. Sometimes, the fit and finish of it isn't as beautiful as you'd like for the amount of money that you're spending, because they're focused on the commercial customer that doesn't care about those things. Their directions aren't very good. Their packaging isn't beautiful, but their product is the best functional product that exists. And so oftentimes you have to be willing to make sacrifices. And so I'm looking for the best, functional user experience. We call it the pursuit of functional excellence. And there is an understanding sometimes that needs to be portrayed, or some people need to understand, what they're getting at times. And so I think my place in the world is to really explain to people what they're getting and what to expect. And if they should expect perfection, I'll let them know, this particular product is perfect. You should expect that. Or this particular product, here are the pros and cons. Here's what your expectations should be, not what you're entitled to, because I believe we're entitled to nothing in this world, but what you should expect. And setting those expectations can be really powerful. And I am willing to fall on the sword because I want it for myself. And then the big epiphany was realizing that, well, I can provide others value by sharing what I learn.
Would that be like teaching the correct technique as well? Like if you're using a tool incorrectly, it's obviously going to break. So you're saying, this is how to use it correctly that will make it last its lifetime.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time on that and learning myself. And oftentimes I accidentally become an expert, and am very rarely given that expert moniker by the audience, right? I'm okay with that. not getting the credit for being an expert. But generally, I'm pursuing expertise. Like, for example, I've been really working on health and fitness, and to help battle this crazy brain of mine. I figure if I'm perfectly chemically balanced, that maybe that would help, with some of the obsessed tendencies. And so I've been really focused on CrossFit as well as mountain biking. And I'm not an expert mechanic when it comes to mountain bikes, but I'm willing to share where I'm at and what I'm learning, and deal with the fallout of people, calling you stupid. I think you have to be willing to put yourself out there in order to get a result. And then the magic of it is 50% of the people call you stupid, 50% of the people help. They provide resources, they provide information. And then the other, then I spend a percentage of my time, like, I'm looking for a school. Like, I'd like to go to a mechanic school, where you would go if you were going to become a full-time professional cycling mechanic. That to me is really interesting. And so that pursuit of expertise, that obsession with something new and interesting, I think is what, the whole obsessed garage thing is about, is people that have a tendency to want to pursue stuff like that, whether it's your career, whether it's your family, or, you're taking a vacation, you're going to buy a new object. Most people that have these tendencies have a tendency to pursue and obsess over whatever they have an interest in at the time.
Cool. Yeah. So you've obviously gone into depth in terms of finding every kind of possible tool or technique or everything that you need within a garage. So when you come out with like a product or a solution, like that, I'm just looking on your website, you have like the complete bucket solution. Like, so when you come up with some kind of product like that, like what kind of thought process, what kind of like testing and all that kind of things to get to that point where you're like willing to put it up for sale?
Did you purposely pick the most controversial thing I've ever launched?
Or did you want to talk about another thing? That's
the best example of a very misunderstood product, right? So years ago, this is before I started the YouTube channel, before this event in 2014. There's a company called Grit Guard, and they had a 2-bucket solution. And so they had 2 buckets, and you could just buy the package. It was like $150 or something like that. And one day I bought it and I had it. But I didn't like the buckets. I didn't like the casters. I didn't like the little stays that held the buckets in place. I didn't like the connector plate, but it was a nice experience because I had one for rinse and one for wash, and it was my foray into starting to wash using the 2-bucket method. And so I had those buckets, and as I started to get a little bit beat up, I said, I'd really like to replace the buckets. And so I went online and I started doing research like I normally do every night around 7 p.m. So that's 7 to 11 p.m. is my happy place where I sit on the couch, watch something on Netflix, or watch a NBA game or something, and I have my laptop on my lap and I'm searching for product, searching for things that I might find interesting. And so I went and found every company that makes a bucket that I could find. And I'm pretty good at Google searching, pretty good at digging deep and finding the professional companies. And so I ordered 27 different buckets in all different sizes: 3-gallon, 5-gallon, 6-gallon, 7-gallon. Those are the bucket sizes that are made. And so I ordered from all like US Plastics and Letica Direct, and I found whatever companies I could find that sold buckets. The problem is most of them won't sell you a single bucket. So I'd have to buy like 10 or 5. And so I had probably 75 buckets show up. I probably spent a couple $1,000s on these buckets, right? And then I got the buckets and I'm testing the tensile strength. I'm holding up to the light. Is it transparent? How's the plastic? Is it splotchy? Is it nice? And then I started washing. And one of the things that was struggling with is I had a Ford Raptor at the time, and I'd have to refill my buckets all the time. Like as I'm dunking my wash mitt in, I'm always having to go back and refill it. And so I thought, well, maybe the 7-gallon would be the way to go because it holds 2 gallons more of water, and maybe I won't have to fill it. The problem, the 7 gallons looked kind of funky because they had a bunch of tiers to it, and the Grit Guard didn't fit in it very well. And I found that at the end of it, I ended up with like about 3 gallons of water left after washing my Raptor. So then I thought, well, the 6-gallon is a lot more attractive. This company, Letica, makes a really nice 6-gallon bucket, and the Grit Guard, the added bonus is the Grit Guard fits in it nicely and leaves like another extra inch gap, and so the bottom of the bucket is where the dirt falls is not exposed. And I found that it was the most efficient size was to have 6-gallon buckets. But the only way to get 6-gallon buckets, if you didn't want to spend $50 a piece on a bucket like I had to, was to buy them in pallets. So I had to buy 188 at a time in order to make it usable. And so I'm like, well, why don't I put together a bucket package? And so instead of doing 2-inch casters with those 6-gallon buckets, 3-inch Grit Guard had those. The 3-inch rolled smoother. And then taking their plate, I hate diamond plate. I think that's cheesy. Like that's like a dude thing that you do that like dudes are normally tacky. If I flipped it upside down, the connector plate was, flat aluminum, brushed aluminum on the top. I didn't have to see the diamond plate. That seemed to make sense. And then Grit Guard had just launched their new dollies. And then when I put it all together, it added up to like $230 something my cost. And I had to buy tens of thousands of dollars of it on pallets in order to make it cost that much. And that would be for a 3-bucket solution, because one for my wheels, one for rinse, one for wash. And then I found a company that would use car vinyl instead of just putting a sticker on. So the vinyl would be more durable and made the logos for the labels for them. And that bucket package came out to $295. Needs to fit in a box that's like 4 feet tall and 2 by 2 wide. So as you might imagine, costs a fortune to ship. And so I launched the bucket package saying, hey, look, I spent probably $5,000 of trial and error to figure out my bucket package. And I'm selling it to you for the $230 plus a margin. So I'm making $50, $60, $70 on it, depending on, what version of it you bought. And so I'm making a margin, not a crazy margin. And yet the internet didn't believe me. No one believed that the buckets, there's no way I could buy these buckets for $50. And of course, if you went and did and said, well, I'm going to buy bucket dollies, I'm going to buy 3-inch casters, I'm going to buy the connector plate, I'm going to buy the gamma seals, I'm going to buy all of the parts and pieces. And oh, by the way, I have to buy 188 buckets at a time. Then you start to realize, oh, shoot, maybe these buckets are the way to go. But I think the story of Obsessed Garage is 27 buckets to find the one. And I threw away or gave away, I put those buckets on the curb. So a couple $1,000s worth of buckets. Most of the bucket cost was shipping to get it to me, because you can't ship a bucket efficiently. And to be willing to, and I wasn't planning on selling buckets. I had no idea I would sell buckets at the time. So I never knew I would recoup that. But I wanted a great solution, a great experience when washing the car. And so that's where the bucket package comes from. And so you spend $300 on a bucket package and tell me I'm an idiot for how much it costs. But if you knew what it would have cost you, and now you get to see it on my website, it makes perfect sense. But that package didn't exist. Now it's everywhere. Everywhere with 5-gallon buckets instead of 6, because most people don't realize that 6-gallon is a superior bucket size to use. It's harder to find. The bucket's more expensive, but let's build what it needs to be, not to a price point.
Right. Yeah. Because people don't realize how much things actually cost when, you have to go through all the different avenues, and someone like Home Depot, that's why a lot of the mum and pop shops go out of business, because they have that bulk, like Amazon, they can buy thousands of units and have them made for 5 cents on a dollar. But when you try to order 5 or 6 or 10 or 20 even, it's just you have to pay for all that shipping, and everything adds up.
My thesis in the beginning, after making the videos and realizing, using as a form of therapy, I built the obsessgarage.com website as a way to just give people links to where to go buy stuff. But I found it so difficult to send people, where do you buy buckets? Where do you buy a pressure washer? And then all these fittings from 10 different companies from all over the place. And so the obsessgarage.com store was was born because of that inconvenience. I built an entire website with exact links of where to get stuff, and people still couldn't get it done. They couldn't figure it out. Like the companies wouldn't have the product, or they just said, Matt, can you please just tell me where to get this in one spot? And there wasn't one, didn't exist. And so I made it exist. And the thesis was that I would make one-click solutions. And what I would do is because I'm finding products from all over the world, I don't have a lot of buying power, because I'm not just buying from one place. You like Home Depot will buy everything Milwaukee and only Milwaukee, and so they're narrow and deep in that one company, and that's it. Or they'll negotiate with a brand to say, hey, we will only buy your products, like Hunter. They buy Hunter Lighting or Lithonia. So they have like two brands they deal with. But I'm looking for the best in class in each category. And so my thesis was, I can't discount because I don't have the margins to do it. So we're not going to run all kinds of sales and play those games. And I have to charge for shipping. And so as I get bigger and I get better rates with UPS and with USPS, I'll charge just flat whatever they charge me. And so I knew that would put me at an extreme competitive disadvantage. But it's clearly working out, in that people want somebody to make this solution, want to come up with a solution, and they're happy to pay me a reasonable margin to do that. We don't mark things up above retail, so I ask for the retail price, not on sale, and then we ask our customers to pay for shipping, because that is a cost I cannot assume. I can't take on the cost of shipping because I don't have the margin to eat it, like a Chinese Amazon, very, very high margin, very inexpensive product might have. And plus, I'm not going to Meguiar's and saying, hey, I'm just going to buy all Meguiar's stuff, so give me a 50-60% margin because I'm going to go narrow and deep with you, because Meguiar's doesn't have a single product that I'm using at the moment.
Right, and I'm sure it's like a lot of, like you said, a lot of trial and error, a lot of testing involved, a lot of like research to find the best products, and people obviously trust your opinion. And if you're going to put something on your website, it's better be a good product.
It's going to be good. It probably is great. And if it's not the best, hopefully I'm going to figure out what the best is at some point in the future, or have the company make it differently. And that's where I think I'm headed in the future, is we've found maybe not the bottom of the barrel of what exists, but the future is to go and make things that don't exist. So take things to another level of excellent. And so that's where I think my future is headed, is to we found the best products that exist for the garage. Now let's go out and take those products to another level of what we'd all want.
And then you have like a membership like offering. So for the people, I guess, like the diehard fans, like what kind of things can they expect to get by being a member?
I found myself sharing more and more personal stuff on YouTube and on the channel, and I found that there's some stuff I would hold back on, things that I'd like to talk about. Like, for example, I just bought a building. So the first building I bought, OGHQ. So all of the buildings I'm leasing and renting, we're all coming to one spot. And so it just doesn't sit as well when you share the particulars and what you go through and the negotiation process, and it's not about what the building costs. It's about the data, and it's about the learning process that I'm going through, and learning how to buy a multi-million-dollar building. Like, how do you do that? And no one wants to tell you, because it's not very polite. It's not polite in society to talk about money and things like that. And so I wanted to build a membership platform where I could have those discussions with people without any judgment, assessment, or opinion from the people watching. That I'm not attempting to show off. I'm sharing what I've learned. And then I had a couple of emails in my inbox of some people with some expertise on insurance, on expertise, on warehousing that watched those videos, and they were able to sort of contribute to me, and I can contribute back to them by making more videos. And so the Inside the Hex membership program is designed for me to be able to journal and share the, so the inner workings of the business as I learn and as I grow, as me as a human, and as the business grows, and then share a little bit more inside access into family life. And I think there's a lot of potential value there in sharing. If you share your life, it could be confirming to others, okay, yeah, I think the same, or I do that as well. It could be a way for me to share what I've learned, and maybe people to contribute back to me and share what they've learned. And so the Inside the Hex membership platform is a lot of me either sitting down in front of a camera and talking about life, business, things that I'm discovering, or just vlogging my day in the life and sharing, how I go about my morning, how I go about my midday, how I go about my evenings, and how I talk to my kids, those kind of things. And so rather than putting that public, we have it on our website, and it's $8 a month, and you pay, and it's how I, generate a little bit more profitability to hopefully, someday be able to, continue to buy the cars I want and things like that. And the only way you can convince people to do that is if you provide them some value. And I've used that word a lot. Byproduct and value. The byproduct of obsession and the value provided. If you're providing value, people will take you up on that offer. And so I think we probably have about 3,000 members, something like that, of people that some come and go. That's also the only way to get a discount in our store is you become a Hex Plus member. They pay a couple $100 a year for that, and that helps offset the cost of shipping. We generally lose money on Hex Plus members, but it's a way for me to get around the everybody deserves a discount kind of thing. Senior citizen discount, the first responders discount, the teacher discount, the veteran discount, the young man discount, the young lady discount. I mean, where do you draw the line? I like all those people, and then everybody gets a discount or lies about a discount. And so instead of discounting down to zero, we've created a platform for the people who are really bought in, to show our appreciation.
To wrap it up, in terms of, like you mentioned, you first started doing this YouTube and doing the garage as a form of therapy. What have you learned over the years in terms of what works and what doesn't work, and what kind of advice would you give to other people that kind of see themselves in the same kind of thought process as you were?
After I first started selling the first products, which was the pressure washer package, the Krenzel pressure washer package, I thought I was on to something. I thought it was a way for me to sort of enhance my career. I thought putting myself out there on YouTube was a way for me to get clients in wealth management, when eventually it was the opposite. I should be, this is what I'm born to do. Wealth management was a job. This is what I should be doing. So eventually I figured that out. But the garage, I've realized, is the anchor of my obsession, right? So I love the garage. Cars go in it. Lighting illuminates it. The cabinets are where things get stored in the garage. The flooring is what makes the floor look nice. The tools and the detailing happens in the garage. I enter my house through the garage. I exit my house through the garage. The garage is the anchor. It's my happy place. We talked about that earlier. And so I think that the connection that other people have to this is the garage, or some form, or one of those things in the garage is the anchor of their obsession. You mentioned that word hobby. I think, to me, hobby is lazy. It's an improper word for an obsessed person, right? A hobby is almost it's like a borderline insult to the level that most of us obsessed type people tend to go. And so having and using terms like that, I know it's all semantics, but it doesn't explain this passion, the passion for what we have. Shoot, I just realized here recently that I don't get to take the obsession, like pull it off my shoulders and hang it up in the garage when I walk into the house. So I realized that, man, I love home theater. I'm obsessed with faucets, with sinks, with appliances, with lighting in the house, with my desk, with my computer, with my speakers in my desk, with my turntable. I'm obsessed with many different things. But it all comes back to the garage. To me, my house is just attached to it, right? I have to live in the house. I actually spend more time in the house than I do in the garage, but I don't get to just leave the obsession behind. It comes with me. And it comes with me when I go to the grocery store. I return my cart, and I generally bring back 10 carts with me. It goes with me when I go into my office, and by the sort of the what we're portraying or putting out into the world of people. It's the same way with my camera. It's the same way with if I'm drinking water. I take that obsession everywhere I go. What's the best water to drink? What water do I appreciate the most? As right now, it's a Mountain Valley spring water at the moment. And so chasing those things is what helps keep me in the happy place and occupy the brain that is rather flawed. And the biggest epiphany in my life was recognizing these things. The garage is the anchor. I am deeply flawed and humbled every day by those flaws. But if I can figure out a way to channel and stay in the happy place, that there can be real value provided to the world. So if I can provide anybody any piece of advice, it's to figure out what that is. The sooner you can figure it out, hopefully you're 19, you can figure it out. Or if you're 79, you can figure it. If you figure it out, then when you figure it out, life is great. Even with deep, humbling flaws, life can be really good. And so that's my advice to everyone is we don't all get to do what we want to do all day long. But if you can figure out what you're passionate about, if you can realize that the word hobby is an insult, I think you can change the world.
Because, I think there's a negative connotation towards someone who's obsessed in terms of, like, people always tell you, calm down, or don't be so obsessed, or why are you so involved in this and that and the other. Whereas it feels like it's some kind of suppression system where people are trying to say, don't be excellent, just be normal. Don't go too involved into something. Like you're going to get either taken over and just be focused in on that one thing. But it's better than the alternative, like you said, passing out, or at least just becoming normal, or just being ordinary. I guess that's the word.
Ordinary is, I think, a curse. And I think equally being obsessed can be a curse as well. And figuring out a way, for the better part of the early years of my life, I viewed it as a superior thing. Being more organized. If you're not, you're lazy. Being willing to pursue and work harder. If you're not willing to do that, you're lazy. You're inferior. You're not as good. And then being humbled in 2014 and having to deal with that humbling every day, I think has part of the reason why I now have 500,000 people that are watching me do this, do this life that I'm doing. And the more that I can understand that and recognize that I really need others in this world, I can take the obsession, take I out of it, and make it more of a we. And the more that you can do that, I think the more benefit we can all get from chasing passion. It's hard to take the I out. Man, if I watched videos or this video, I probably used the word I 1,000 times. It's a difficult thing to remove from your vernacular and then your intentions in the world.
Yeah, for sure. And like you said, you've built this following, and obviously you're doing something right. There's a lot of people that try to do what you do, and it doesn't work for whatever reason. They are conceited, or they do have a superior complex. Or
I get a lot of pushback on that because I just say what is so, and I'm getting better at it. I'm attempting to learn how to say I less. It's hard to do that when I'm just not, like, my interpersonal ability is not so great unless you get me talking about two things: a product or thing that I'm interested in, or myself. Right. I've gotten really good at telling my story because so many people have had me tell my story over and over again. So if I'm at like a dinner party and we're just hanging out with a bunch of regular, ordinary people, gosh, I'm like I'm just in the corner by myself, just feeling uncomfortable. Like, I want to get out of here. But if somebody in that room asked me about the bucket package and let me go, I will own that whole space. I will work that whole room. I will have everybody signed up, purchasing it, understanding it, believing in it by the end of it. And so to the average, ordinary person, that can come across wrong, right?
Yeah.
It can come across really wrong. When I say, look, your buckets suck, these buckets are great, that's to some people that immediately shuts them down. Instead of, I've learned how to not say your buckets suck, but still say it sucks in a much more, a much better tone.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to learn how to do that. That's a hard thing to do.